Welcome to our event, Spring into Wellness. Today we're co-hosting with Worker Being, Water Bear Planet, and my team, My Mommy is an organizational psychologist. My name is Sevelyn Crosby, and I have my PhD in positive organizational psychology. And I am the author of this book, My Mommy is an Organizational Psychologist. So we put on free events for our organizational psychologist community, like today's event on Spring into Wellness. I'll tell you a little bit more about my book in just a bit. So today we are joined by Dr. Patricia Grabaric and Dr. Katina Sawyer, who are both industrial organizational psychologists, workplace wellness experts, and co-founders of Worker Being. Patricia has worked with over 60 organizations to help leaders build healthier, more engaging, and higher performing workplaces. Katina is an associate professor of the University of Arizona's Eller College of Management, where her research focuses on leadership, employee well-being, and organizational culture. So Patricia and Katina are actually both the book author of this book right here called Leading for Wellness. It's been recognized as one of Culture Amp's top 25 emerging culture creators, and their work has been featured in different outlets like Time and Fast Company, where they are really focused on research-based practical approaches to helping teams truly thrive. What I really like most about the book is that at the end of each chapter, there's a recap and some really helpful exercises. So for about 20 minutes of today's session, Katina and Patricia will help us discover some of those simple, realistic, and practical wellness practices. But because Leading for Wellness starts by walking your talk and making it real for you, we have Sharon Unis, who is a seasoned program designer, facilitator, and founder of Water Bear Planet. She'll help us focus on what work recovery in our daily work life means to us as individuals. She'll guide us through a restorative exercise to help us integrate everything we've learned today while recharging our batteries. So get comfy. Over the years, Sharon has partnered extensively with individuals and organizations, sharing opportunities with people of all ages to take a step back from their daily lives and experience themselves anew, while making stress and discovering new possibilities for calm, clarity, and presence. Currently, Sharon offers one-on-one and cohort-based experiential learning programs through Water Bear Planet and collaborates with Patricia and Katina on organizational and team wellness. So a couple housekeeping items is everyone please add in the chat your LinkedIn. I want you to find someone to connect with after today's session. If you have questions, add them in the chat or come off mute. We want this to be interactive. And lastly, please stay to the very end because we will be raffling off these two books. So just a little bit more about the book before we jump in is, again, I wrote this book back in 2020 because I felt there was a need to, in simple language, describe what an organizational psychologist can do as a practitioner. So if you are an organizational psychologist, this makes the perfect gift for colleagues, family members, other friends. It doesn't have to be for children. It really can be used to help educate anyone of all ages. Please follow us on social media. And if you would like to show support for today's event, please go ahead and purchase a copy and use this promo code 25OFF for 25% off your purchase today. All right, with further ado, let's hand it over to Katina and Patricia to get us started.
Awesome. Well, I think Sevelyn did a great job introducing us and what we do. We're so excited to be here. And I'm Patricia, my co-author, co-founder Katina is here as well. And we're gonna just dive into a little bit about leading for wellness and what we found in the research for the book. Before I do that, I will kind of talk a little about us a bit more. So we co-founded Worker Being, I don't even know how many years ago now, before the pandemic at this point. That's probably a good marker, right? So that's a long time ago now. We co-founded the business because we were seeing a gap in how organizations really handle workplace wellness. There's a lot of challenges around workplace wellness. A lot of organizations are trying, or at least at the time, and are continuing to try to figure out ways to create healthy work environments so that employees are not burning out and, costing organizations a ton of money with things like sick leave and, absenteeism, not showing up for work or quitting because of their burnout. So there organizations really want to find the solutions, but there's so many things out there right now that are touting workplace wellness. Anything from meditation apps to, um, you know, eating challenges, walking challenges, et cetera, within organizations. And yet nobody was seeing a big impact and a big difference. So in my work and as a practitioner, I was seeing a lot of people come to us and asking me questions like, well, how do I change the culture? What's going on? Like, how do we improve workplace wellness? And so we decided to build a business to kind of help answer that question. Katina saw it from an academic perspective, so I'm gonna let her chime in right now too.
Yeah, so I think there was just a lot that we were seeing going on both with clients and students, and maybe some of you, if you're students, you're feeling this way too, that there are some basic questions about how to improve your well-being, and you might not always know the best strategies or the way to go about doing so, especially as you're trying to integrate work and life together. And so as you're thinking through your lives as potential or future leaders, it can be hard sometimes to know what to prioritize when you're thinking about how to create a life that is fulfilling from a challenging perspective and a work perspective, but also is fulfilling personally, where you're refilling your cup each day or at least frequently enough that you're able to give to others. And so Patricia was hearing from clients and I was hearing from students that some of these very basic questions that people didn't know how to answer as they were starting their leadership career, or even when they were decades into their leadership career, that they had never gotten that balance correct, that they didn't really have a guide or a roadmap that would help them to be able to understand how to systematically and more strategically manage their wellness as they led and boosting results at the same time and making sure that the organization was also benefiting. And so we decided to help organizations to kind of push the easy button by being able to provide their leaders with, or readers as individuals to buy these books, to help get that solution, prioritization, and roadmap that's easy to follow instead of trying to wade through all the science on this on your own.
Yeah, Sharon, if you can move to the next slide. I think we touched on this a little bit. But when we built Worker Being, we were coming in to help organizations figure out the right answer as to how to create these thriving, healthy work environments. And we were whittling down research for folks and helping them implement, what we knew from the literature about workplace wellness. We went down this Leading for Wellness framework, as Katina already mentioned, because we were really hoping to simplify. And as Evelyn so kindly shared about our book, we do have worksheets. We have all sorts of resources within the book itself that is just kind of like a one-stop shop for a leader to be able to pick up, and or even an employee. Because honestly, if you're influential on your team, if you're having a lot of if you're a big team dynamic person that you're trying to help create a culture yourself, there's a lot you can take away from it too. So we wanted to create a framework that was just easy to pick up and move forward, and organizations can give to their leaders, and leaders can actually implement quickly and easily to help build that healthy work environment. And the main reason why we focus on leaders is because we learned very quickly that all of these other programs, these add-ons, are icing on a cake. But if the cake is disgusting, that icing doesn't make a difference, right? So if you have a terrible culture within the organization, you've got people are overworking, there's 80 hours that people are expected to work a week instead of the, typical 35, 40. If people are not able to take vacations or disconnect, all these horrible things, that's the cake. You put on top of that some mindfulness app. Is that really going to help your employees? Probably not. So we wanted to help people bake that cake. So we have a good, moist, yummy cake that we can eat first before we worry about the icing. The icing's a nice to have, but let's make sure we build that culture correctly from the inside, so that we can create environments that are thriving and healthy and helpful for all employees versus just these kind of add-on perks that may work for some but are not actually a meaningful impact to how people approach their work. Anything else you want to add to that, Katina?
No, this is great. You can move forward to the next one. Thank you, Sharon. So, in our research, we uncovered that there were two different types of leaders. And because I know we have a lot of folks who are students in the call and also folks who have organizational psychology training, a little bit of background. We basically, to go about answering these questions that Patricia just talked about, how do we create this easy and actionable roadmap for people? And how do we know what to prioritize? And if it's not the icing that's the answer, what are the ingredients of the cake that make the biggest difference? And so, in order to figure out what those ingredients were, we interviewed dozens and dozens of people from across industries who self-nominated as having had a leader who was exemplary at both supporting their wellness and boosting results on their team. And we learned from those individuals what those leaders did that stood out so much to them and that made those leaders so memorable over sometimes decades. Folks remembered these leaders for a very long time. They left behind a very strong legacy. And we also surveyed hundreds more people to try to ensure that our framework was replicable. And throughout our research, interviews, and survey results, what we noticed was that people both wanted to discuss the leaders that were positively deviant on one side. So if you think about being a great leader as a continuum, there are some folks who move from neutral all the way to proactively very positive. Those were the people that we heard folks talking about and who they nominated themselves to speak about. We call these folks generators, leaders that build strong connections, support work-life balance, and create energizing and thriving workplaces. These individuals don't just reflect the absence of bad leadership, but they actually reflect the proactive presence of positive leadership. And those are the folks that we really wanted to focus our time and attention on when we were doing our research. However, we also found that it was a very useful foil for people to talk about the leaders that were negatively deviant. A lot of people wanted to share with us their horror stories as we were interviewing individuals. And at first, while we found that sort of distracting from our core purpose of trying to understand these positively deviant leaders, we realized that having this foil to understand people who are also on the other side of the equation helps to make a nice continuum where if you have folks in your organization that are extinguishers, perhaps the first part of the journey, if you're a leader that's creating stressful or toxic environments that drain employees of energy, moving extinguishers from negatively deviant to neutral might be the first step and then moving them from neutral into this positively deviant category. So it can help you think about how to solve for problems. If you're seeing a lot of extinguishers, they may not become extinguishers to generators overnight, but moving them along that continuum closer to being generators may be a good first step. So these are sort of the two categories of leaders that came out of our research. And we talk more about how you can create more leaders who are these positively deviant formats upcoming.
And if you move to the next slide. So this is a very high level overview of what we found. So those generators, those really positive leaders, they had these top 4 behaviors that we talk about in great length and give a lot of tips around how you can build these skills and these behaviors. But these are the top 4 that we saw that repeated over and over and over again. All of these generators really showed and modeled these behaviors. So the first, they focus on vulnerability and authenticity. So that is really a foundation for trust, right? So these leaders were building trust and good relationships through being authentic, showing who they are, sharing bits about themselves as a whole person, but also being vulnerable. So sharing their struggles in addition to just being an ear as a leader for other people's struggles, they were sharing struggles. They're making it safe to do so for other team members because they were not that perfect, ideal leader. They were real people that make mistakes or have a hard time with certain things. And they talked about it openly to create an environment where people were able to be authentic and vulnerable as well, to create that kind of trusted relationship with their employees. The second behaviors, they really did a good job role modeling. They role modeled a lot of different positive things, including work-life balance. So they were not overworking themselves to try to catch all the extra workload from their team. They were modeling work-life balance so other people felt like they could do the same. They modeled positivity, having a good attitude and really showing up and being kind and caring and positive in the workplace. And they also modeled gratitude, and gratitude is so important. Many of you probably already know about this, but gratitude can kind of build on itself, right? So if you are showing gratitude to somebody else, then that person feels that, positive energy, and then they're going to go and thank another person. That just kind of snowballs into this really positive team culture. So by focusing on modeling really positive behaviors, their teams started doing those same behaviors, which created a culture that kind of self-sustained because those leaders didn't have to be around all the time because now they're showing gratitude to their employees and then those employees are doing the same within the team and they're building that culture as a team because of that role model behavior. The third set of behaviors is really about flexibility and boundary bouncing. So we use this term boundary bouncer, where basically these leaders did a really good job of blocking anybody from taking away from people's boundaries. So if I have a boundary that on Tuesdays I stop working at 4:30 because I go pick up my kid from daycare or whatever, my leader, a generator, would make sure that that boundary is not crossed. So if somebody set a meeting at 4:30 with me, I would feel okay to say no, or I could go to my leader and say, hey, this person did this, and they come in and step in and we'll make sure that that boundary is respected. So they do a really good job of making sure your boundaries are respected, not just within the team, external to the team. They respect their own boundaries, again, role modeling that behavior, and they're really flexible, working with people to understand how to best uh, create the balance for them within the team. And the final set of behaviors is really around person-centered planning. So it's kind of builds, as you can kind of see, these all build on each other to create like this really positive leader. And this person-centered planning is where leaders understand that they don't have the answer to everything, that one size does not fit all. They're not going to know exactly how to tackle every challenge, how to be flexible appropriately for every situation that an employee is facing. What they do instead is they sit down with employees, they really, really listen, they provoke good, honest conversation. They're not judgmental. So even if it's a challenge that to them doesn't seem like they wouldn't have that same challenge, they put all that aside and they're really transparent and non-judgmental and very good at listening to their employees as they're bringing challenges and issues up to them so that they can work on planning on how to address that challenge together. Again, they don't have to have all the solutions, but because they work with their team members and really get to understand what their specific unique situations are, they can address them effectively together. So those are the top four behaviors. We go into a lot more detail, as I mentioned in the book. A lot of really great stories that we heard throughout our research on like how people do these things effectively. And these four key areas really create those generator leaders that, as Katina was saying, the positively deviant folks that made a big impact on employees long term. And people were talking about leaders they had, early in their careers when they're about to retire, right? These leaders have a huge impact on their employees.
So, a lot of what we talk about in our research is really how to create these systems that work well to support employee well-being from the leader out, right? Because we believe that a lot of organizations that have cultures of overwork and burnout, these are systems that make it very hard for employees to achieve their own wellness within. And so a lot of our solutions that we like to put forward for companies are more systemic and sort of radiating out from the leader themselves to help take care of their employees. And so if you're in a leadership role or a role of influence, you have an outsized effect on the team. However, we recognize that when you're in an entry level role, when you're first starting in your company and you have less of an impact over shaping that culture that leaders might, there may be instances in which you need to take matters into your own hands and try to do things to craft your individual wellness, right? So not everybody will be a person that's an architect of culture right out of the gate. And if that's the case for you, there are things that you can do to take care of your own wellness that research shows are particularly effective. It's also the case that leading in this way, if some of you are already in leadership roles and you resonate with the leaders that Patricia was just talking about and the behaviors that they're able to do to sort of shape the culture, sometimes these things can be challenging. We have some students on the call, as you mentioned before, and I think that, you can look at those list of behaviors that Patricia just talked about and think, well, isn't that just common sense that leaders should act that way? But if you think about the norms of workplaces that keep people from being authentic, and you think about the pulls of overwork and the stretches on people's time and the way that people let work bleed into life without really thinking about it, and the demands that people put on their employees, etc., these things are actually much harder than they sound like. And being a leader that sort of pushes against those cultures, if you're not in an organization that's aligned with the way that you want to lead, can also also be stressful and challenging. So having these individualized wellness strategies can help to combat some of these things if you have less power over the culture that you're trying to create, or if you're a leader that's trying to do this, but sometimes find it challenging yourself. We also have information in the book about common challenges that leaders face when trying to enact cultures of wellness and more specific strategies for overcoming those from an interpersonal and sort of working within the culture and the politics perspective. But for now, we'll talk about 4 types of recovery that help individuals after or during work. So the first of these is detachment. I teach an undergraduate course called Leading for Wellness that's based around the book, and it's been so much fun. And the main thing that my undergraduate students and my master's students actually struggle the most with is detaching from technology. I had students in my class take bets of who could stay off social media the longest. And it was quite interesting because in the beginning, they really struggled with it. And by the end of the semester, they were so happy with the quality time that they gained by disconnecting from things that they realized were entertaining, but were not fulfilling. And so detaching really allows you to take time away from technology. This is all technology, even watching Netflix, really allowing yourself to disconnect from devices and try to spend some time immersed with other people or in nature so that you're not constantly getting pinged by things that are grabbing your attention without being strategically able to focus on the things that you want to focus on, as opposed to sort of being reactive to content. You are actually creating and putting yourself in environments with content that you want to see, which we hope is other people and nature and things that you're not always seeing on a screen. I'm going to skip mastery for a second because it always is surprising to people. That is the most important of the 4, the most impactful of the 4. So I'm going to come back to that one at the end and tell you that one as a little bit of suspense. Control is another mechanism for recovery. This one sounds kind of, this one can be sometimes hard for people to grasp because it feels like what I'm saying is that you should continue to engage in work, but that's not what I'm saying. Control is the idea of getting control over your schedule. Often, what keeps us attached to work mentally is the idea that we haven't resolved certain things in our minds and we're running through our minds what we need to do the next day or the next few hours or the next week. And so, as long as there are all these unresolved tasks or unresolved ideas that are floating around in your head, you cannot stop thinking about those things, or they're still stressing you or running in the background, even when you're trying to do other stuff. So if it feels to you like you're constantly kind of ruminating on what's to come next, taking control of your schedule by planning your week, planning the next day. If there are a bunch of tasks that you didn't get done today that you need to get done tomorrow, planning when you're going to do them frees up your mental headspace so you can mentally disconnect from work. I'm sure many of you have had the experience where you're with people, but your mind is somewhere else. It can cut down on that experience of having your mind be somewhere else when you're with other people if you stop that stuff from running in the background noise. Control can help you to do that. So spending some time planning and scheduling for your next day or week can be very helpful. Relaxation is also useful. This is literally just listening to music, watching TV. Again, this doesn't have to do with disconnecting from screens, so a little less helpful than the other strategies. But if the only thing that you have time for or that you have resources for is relaxation, we're saying it's okay to watch Netflix and binge a show every now and again. That's fine. There are some relaxing benefits just from doing nothing and sort of vegging out. The last one that I'll come back to is this idea of mastery. Mastery is the idea of getting better at or achieving in an area that's non-work related and that you care about. So for example, if you really care about getting better at knitting, then spending some time knitting every day and trying new knitting challenges can be really important for your well-being. If you want to get better at karate, or you want to be a better hiker, or you want to be a better writer, spending time on a hobby that's engaging to you, that fulfills you, not something that's been marketed to you as something that you need to do, right? It's really something that fulfills you in your core. What is that activity or those activities? And spending time in those activities and trying to improve in them not only gives you a sense of accomplishment and self-worth outside of the work domain, which improves your self-esteem overall, but it also helps to give you energy and enjoyment in a different sort of way. So mastery, if you could pick one of these 4, definitely do that. But if you're low on sleep and you haven't slept well, don't do any of these, go to bed. So that's another strategy that you can use.
For tip 5. Yeah, so that is our, quick and dirty introduction to our research on Leading for Wellness. We'd love to hear from any of you at any point. If you have any questions about the content, you can always email us. You can visit our website. You can find us on social media. We're most active on LinkedIn. I'm on maternity leave still, so I may be a little bit less active, but Katina's there. And we are definitely posting content there. We also have a podcast. Our next season, our second season of our podcast, Leading for Wellness, is launching now. We just had the trailer come out. So if you want to hear more about the book and hear stories from leaders themselves and how they've overcome some of these challenges, I would definitely recommend checking it out. And of course, we'd love for you to grab a copy of the book and learn these behaviors yourself. I'll
It
pass it to
also
you,
makes
Sarah.
a really great gift for people in your life who you think need more balance or you see burning out. So, a lot of the kids in my class got it for their parents for holiday season because they saw that their parents were struggling with leading for their own well being and could maybe use some of the tips in the book. So, if you know somebody who is in a leadership role who you think seems like they might be feeling exhausted or a little burnout, this also could be a good gift.
Um, Thank you, Patricia and Katina. Yeah, this works. Okay, part two. So, what do you do when you're feeling like you're just exhausted or your downtime is falling flat? And Katina and Patricia just highlighted some things to look out for and strategies as well. So, in this segment, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Water Bear Planet, and then we're going to talk a bit more specifically about work recovery, but specifically like based on what you currently are doing and allow you to um, really notice your strengths. I always start from a point of strength, like what's working so well for you that you would not let go for a second. Because even if it's one tiny little thing, like making tea in the morning and reading 2 pages in your book, whatever that might look like for you, could be anything. It's very individually specific. You can always build on that. And the reason I say that is because it can feel really daunting when you're having a hard time detaching, especially if you're a student. Um, there's always a deadline, there's always an exam, there's always something due. If you're working, there's always something happening. And then if you have family that you're taking care of at home, it can be never ending. So where are you in the midst of this? The reason I founded Water Bear Planet was to give people living their everyday lives a better chance, a better access to experiencing calm, experiencing what self-care means to them. It's easy, like I said, it's easy to let go of your personal needs, but it's actually so important as part of this core sense of like retaining yourself as you're moving through life, um, to really stop and take notice. This is how I'm feeling right now. This is actually what I need. Sometimes what we think we need is different than what our bodies are telling us. Like maybe the best strategy is not to turn on Netflix when you're feeling exhausted, just go to bed. Make sure you drink your water. Whatever it is, it's like you got to think of yourself as like an athlete. If you are in athletics currently, it's the same thing for work life. You got to think I need to make sure I'm eating enough protein, I'm eating enough carbs, I'm drinking enough water. So when it comes to your work recovery, it's like, am I actually shutting off from work? Am I actually allowing myself to focus on other things that give me energy? These are the kind of questions that we want to dive into now. And so the reason my company is called Water Bear, I don't know if you're familiar with the little animals called water bears. They are also known as tardigrades or moss piglets. And they're super hardy, super resilient, stress tolerant, microscopic animals that have been on the planet, way before the dinosaurs existed. They've, survived 5 mass extinctions on the planet. And they're a great creature for times like the ones we're living in right now. And also, it's to recognize that, like, if you have strategies in place, like what they do when they don't have enough water is they just kind of curl up in a little ball, and they're like those little those little sponges that you can get when you're a kid and they just sit there forever. Little sponges in a little capsule, maybe the size of a pill. And then you put water in them and suddenly they expand. That's what water bears do. So it's just to give you a sense of there are lots of possibilities for how to take care of yourself when things are challenging. And there's a lot of support out there and a wide variety of dimensions. And part of what I do is help people connect to what's most meaningful to them. So, as you can see, we promote we promote the ethos. Just rest, recharge, and reflect. Just make it a practice. When you stay ahead of things and you're proactive, that's how you manage stress. That's how you avoid burning out if it's something that is in your control. Sometimes our environments drive a lot of stress towards us, and that makes it really challenging. So it's not to negate that at all. And you know, as you're taking a look at this slide, just start thinking about what is it that you do currently that really works for you, and what is it that you're aiming for? Like, what is it in your life that if you could do more of, or that you could feel a certain way? Like, what if you were able to say, when I finish, like, close my computer for the night, I just want to feel like my head is emptied of like all the stuff I've been thinking about. Maybe that's a goal. It for each of you, it will be different. And of course, as a leader, if you're able to like put things into practice for yourself and you're feeling good and you have something that is energizing you, you're only going to that enables you to bring that to your team and allow you to share your strategies and also listen to and coach and encourage your employees to find their way as well. So the thing with self-care and work recovery and these various domains that Katina and Patricia were talking about is, and I was alluding to this before, you got to get creative. There's no right or wrong in this. Consistency is key, because whenever you show up for something more than once and over time, you're going to get better at it. You're going to feel more comfort with it. It's going to start to become part of your routine, as long as it's something that you want to do, and that's key. So make sure it brings you joy. Make sure that you have a focus. Like, why am I doing this today? What do I want to learn? What am I hoping for? If you're an athlete, you can probably relate to this. Or if you're, someone who has a hobby or you cook, you're like, if I do something this way, I get this result. If I do it that way, it's different. This is all part of the process. The self-care is very similar to that. It's whatever works for you. And of course, sleep, rest, and be open to support. Reach out for support. None of us are meant to be doing this all by ourselves, even though it can sometimes feel like we're in our heads by ourselves, or or we don't know where to reach out for help. Coaches are great, therapists are great, and it's really just, and also talk, like, if you're a leader, talk with your people. If you have a leader that you're reporting to, part of what Katina and Patricia talk about in the book is also about that vulnerability, allowing connection to happen and to flow, because that is a form of support. It helps move things, as you probably are aware of, but this all pertains to self-care as well. So my question to you, is just what can you make more doable for you in your day-to-day life? Of everything you've heard tonight, what stands out to you the most? So I'm just going to give you 30 seconds to think about it. I'm going to mute myself and just jot down a few notes. Like, what is it that you feel like, if I could do this more, or I already do this, but if I do it a different way, this is going to be so much more impactful for me. So just take a moment and jot down some notes. Okay. Don't know if that was 30 seconds. You're still writing, that's cool. Because we're going to continue to find out. So if you didn't have anything come up right away, that's fine, but we're going to continue to explore this. So in this next section, um, this is time for you. So this is your break time. I'm going to guide you through an exercise to help you connect to something that was super nourishing and relaxing to you. I'm going to take you somewhere that's within your own imagination and your own memory to help you connect with a deeper state of relaxation in this moment, even though we're sitting on a Zoom call. Yes, it's electronic and digital, but your world lives within your mind and within your body. So the point of it also is to allow you to take your reflections deeper as to what actually is going to be impactful for you. What do you need to take care of yourself now, and to give yourself that opportunity to discover something new about yourself. So if you're wanting to grab a glass of water or lay down, you're welcome to. This is all about getting cozy right now. And so if you feel motivated by this image, like it feels really soothing and calming to you, you can go with it. Or if you have a memory of a time this winter or last summer or last weekend when you experienced calm, connection, joy, something that you really felt from head to toe. So maybe you were out on a hike with friends, or you went for a swim in a lake like this. Maybe it was something out in nature. Usually people recall memories in nature. I encourage you to find one where maybe you were looking at a sunset or you were at the beach, something that really spoke to you. Or maybe it was a moment with your family, in the holidays, which you were just sitting around the table, laughing and playing games and having the best time ever. So in this moment, I invite you to find something. You just need one thing, and allow yourself to go back there and notice how you felt physically, mentally, emotionally, how you felt in your heart, how you felt in your belly. And you can close your eyes while you're doing this and just pay attention to the screen if you want, or just close your eyes and see where you take yourself. And as you go there, you can breathe in that moment and remember some more of the specifics of what were you smelling? What were you hearing? What were you seeing? Perhaps there was a really quick moment that happened you noticed at the time now stands out to you. Like maybe, a beautiful bird flew by and you're like, oh, beautiful bird. But maybe now you want to spend more time looking at that bird. Could be anything. And give yourself the opportunity to really feel yourself in that space, in that moment. And allow it to really be here now. And allow yourself to relax with it. If you want to move your body, just to stretch your body, to really get that sense in your bones, that can be really useful. And take some deep breaths. Breathe in, breathe out, your own pace, in your own way. Allow this moment to fill you up because it's part of you. And give yourself time to recharge and rest in this moment. You really just keep soaking it up like a sponge. And when you're ready, you can find who you write with or jot some notes down on your phone or however you'd like to take some notes. Take some notes on what you just experienced, how you were feeling, how you're feeling, how it made you feel, how you're feeling right now. And then when you're ready, ask yourself this question. What is it that I need to do most to take care of myself? What stands out to me? What do I actually need? And then you can ask yourself, what action steps are going to be most helpful to ensure that I do the thing, that I make it doable. Keep it simple, keep it bite size. You do the thing that you know you need to do. And then finally, any thoughts or any notes that you have on what Patricia and Katina shared? What do you want to carry forward? What struck you as being most interesting for you tonight or afternoon? Something you want to learn more about when it comes down to being or learning to be a leader for wellness. And when you feel complete, and if you're still writing, that's fine. Take a moment to just, circle your wrists, your ankles, stretch your body, have some water. Okay. And so there's always more, there's always opportunities. I talked about support. Patricia, Katina, and I work together. So offer stress resets with a behavioral health psychologist. And if you're interested in deep, deep calm, that's one of the ways that I can help people get out of their heads and let go of everything else. That's something that I support people with. So you're welcome to stay in touch. And I wish you all the best and success in your learning and leadership development and all the things that you need to feel healthy, whole, and to thrive at work.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any comments or questions for any of our guest speakers? Anything at all?
We're happy to answer anything that you might have a question about, even if it's like seems more specific to you, because often when people ask questions, there's someone else in the room that's thinking about that question, but they just didn't ask it. So
One thing Sharon I thought was really helpful was just the comparison of wellness and rest for ourselves, just like an athlete might think about recharging their body. Like how are we charging after our work experiences? So that was really helpful for me.
Good. Yeah, I was just taking a look at the comments. I don't even know when these came in, but if there's anything anyone else wants to share about their experience with the recharge, anything that they want to focus on, share about learning more about in the future based on Patricia and Katina's work with their book, feel free to drop that in.